I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from January 17th? If so, I'll ask for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the 17th.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any changes to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the set agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guest and open forum. Anyone here for guest and open forum? Seeing no one, we'll move into committee reports. Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance met on the 19th. We went through all the financials, as we always do. Everything was looking what we
good.
expected, so.
That's good at the finance.
Yep, gives us something to do. Past due invoices, utilities that are 60 days plus are about $9,500. We talked about project 3 and 4 funding, and those projects are going to be awarded in the next month. And that was about it.
All right. Fire Joint Powers Board.
We met January 23rd. Everything's going great there. We did accept a couple donations from Pizza Depot and Ralph's Auto Body. And we learned that in 2022, there was 598 calls versus 596 in 2021. So very close. Yep, that's about it.
All right. Joint Planning did not meet. How about the Fire Relief Association? Mr. Ebensteiner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We did meet, say a couple weeks back. We had the annual meeting, so it was the fourth Wednesday of the month. And there it was my first annual meeting that I attended, but they went over just a conglomeration of items. We had a nice meal catered in. I think we had some lasagna, which was great. They approved depositories, accounting firms, talked a lot about some of the events that they do throughout the year, talked about their annual fundraiser. The calendars had gone out. So looking at fundraising through that, which is great. They talked about some pay, so they talked about some trustee pay for some of the president and other trustees. Talked about fundraising. They're actually going to make a fundraising committee where they'll get a group of firefighters together that will just discuss kind of taking a different approach. Talked about possibly like a fishing tournament at one of the local lakes, just to kind of stir some interest and fundraising for that as well. But otherwise, it was a good meal and good meeting.
All right. Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, we met on the 30th. We had a public hearing for a rezoning of the 35 acres on Edgewood there. There was 4 or 5 people at the public hearing. No major complaints, more information is what they were after. And after quite a bit of discussion, we finally did approve the rezoning of that 35 acres. It is not sold, it is for sale. I thought it was sold, but it's now for sale. So it might or might not happen in any time in the near future.
So who brought it for rezoning then?
ROILIZ LCC. What is their official? It's a property. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And it's really to make it more saleable, you know.
Sure.
But their asking prices, Johnson's were here represented, and they are interested in it, but not for the amount of money that they got to pay for it. So they're not trying to prevent it from getting rezoned. They don't like it, but they're not trying to stop it or anything. And then we had some edits on Chapter 11 T-Town, commercial interim use permits. We discussed how to go about those. Chapter 11 edits for R2 zoning for district lots with, who was that? R2 zoning. So for the. No, the direct lots. Yeah. Updated the solar overlay. We talked about possible parking areas in the T-Town area, which I think you'll be bringing up tonight. And that's really it. Anything of any importance.
All right. Any other committees that we missed?
We didn't meet.
Okay. All right, public hearing. EDA enabling resolution and bylaw amendments with Mr. Sanders. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:06.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight, we have some updates to the enabling resolution and the bylaws of the City of Becker EDA. So some background information, the initial enabling resolution as required by statute to establish an EDA was done back in 1986. It hasn't changed since then, but statutes and codes have changed since then. So the intent of the updates was to align all of these together with current statutes, current ordinances, and the current bylaws. Additionally, one of the things that was added by the EDA has reviewed the bylaws, and one of the changes they wanted to make was related to the purpose statement, adjusting that so that it made it more comprehensive and up to date with what the EDA and the city is doing currently. So many of the changes, although it appears that there are many, again, they're more for clarification of that. One thing I will point out is the terms of the EDA members, so they are elected to 6-year terms. The exception to that is that the council can set the terms of those members who are part of the council to a 4-year term. And that's been what's typical in the past, so it's just aligning the language again with the current statutory regulations. Legal did review this and was good with all of the edits that are provided in the packet. There were a couple updates, as noted previously. One was just removing of the term freeholders, since legal didn't know what that was. And then just inclusion of the 1995 updates of the bylaws. The bylaws would go to, if approved tonight by council, the bylaws would go to EDA for their review and final approval, as those are adopted by the EDA themselves. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right. I don't hear any. Is there anybody here from the public wishing to discuss the bylaws? Seeing no one, I would ask council for a motion to close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
We are closed at 5:08 PM. Council, I would look to you to see if you would proceed with a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2313, approving revisions to the EDA bylaws.
I'll second that.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board committee and consultant reports. Joint powers agreement with Sherburne County for County Road 53 improvements. Mr. Ebensteiner.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. In front of you tonight is a request for authority to enter into the joint powers with Sherburne County for the County Road 53 improvements. So attached is the full joint powers agreement as well as Resolution 23-12. A little bit of background. So as part of the Business Park Expansion Project 2, which includes installing trunk sanitary sewer and water main along County Road 53 connecting Energy Drive, was awarded back in 2022. A portion of this project included improvements to County Road 53 south of County Road, or County State Aid Highway 8. So that would be the road down to Snuffy's Landing. Sherburne County has a stake in this project, and as such, we've been working to formalize an agreement that defines the responsibilities as we implement this project, which is already underway. So the joint powers agreement that is attached represents the consensus of the parties involved. The county will utilize the funding it received under the Transportation Economic Development Infrastructure Grant. They received $950,000, as well as some additional county funds for a total of $1,236,852.76. And this participation amount agrees with the eligible amount identified. We had a split that we worked with SEH for those costs included. So the city had awarded the contract and will pay the contractor per the terms and then submit to the county on a monthly basis for reimbursement for those. So we did discuss the budget and finance at the last meeting. And then on the budgetary impact, we had discussed when we had approved Project 2, we had included expected Teddy grant funding or county funding of $1.25 million. So this is just slightly less than that, 13,000 less, but within the contingency of the awarded amounts. So with that, I can answer any questions, or Phil Cedar answer any questions specific to the project. Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2312, granting authority to enter into the joint powers agreement for improvements on County Road 53 south of County State 8 Highway 8 with Sherburne County.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 23-12, granting authority to enter into the joint powers agreement for improvements on County Road 53, south of County State 8 Highway 8 with Sherburne County.
I'll second that.
Motion from Becky, second from Mike. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Irrigation pump maintenance plan, Mr. Scharfenkamp.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. We received an update from EH Renner as they were starting to work on the pumps that had been pulled last fall. And we discovered some pretty excessive wear on those pumps. And instead of being able to refurbish those units, we are going to need to replace them. Ultimately, the well was running with a vibration that caused excessive wear that prevented it from being able to be refurbished, and the other pump, the 75 horsepower pump that pulls water onto the course, had some excessive sediment and soil built up in it. Ultimately, those two pumps, we had asked for $24,479 unless major damage was found. Unfortunately, with that damage, the new quote came to $29,645. Staff would propose that we pay for that out of the Gulf Revolving Capital Fund for those additional repairs, which would be a difference of $5,166. And if there's no other questions, I'd ask for a motion and second for the additional $5,166 to be funded by the Gulf Revolving Capital.
We've already approved the 24, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I have no problems with it.
Okay.
Gotta have water.
Well, would you like to make
I'll
that
make a motion. We approve the additional 5,000.
166. All right.
I will second that.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Hall Facility Report Presentation. Chief Balloon, I hear you will be introducing our guest this evening.
I will. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So as you recall, last fall, early last fall, we approved an opportunity to enter into a facility needs study with Wold Architects out of St. Paul. And what that's specifically for is for the police department and city hall areas to address or look at the needs that we may have moving forward or evolving as an organization. We've identified needs as far as office space, certainly needs on our side, if you will, for evidentiary area, storage, and all kinds of other things. But where we've come since then is Walt has done an assessment of our facilities along with survey of staff, both City Hall and the Police Department, to kind of help identify wants versus needs, that sort of thing. But a couple of the things that have now come up after our meetings is we've gotten several options to kind of look at and just to kind of think about. Just so you're aware, it's the four options initially that came up were a demolition, addition, renovation, addition renovation, new construction, or a phase new renovation. The cost of something like that, probably no surprise, would run us in the ballpark of 15 to $20 million. As a result, we did ask both Paige Sullivan and John McNamara, who are here tonight, to kind of look at another option for us. And so there is a fifth option that we have looked at as a facility work group, and have now kind of decided we'd like to bring it forward to the City Council for questions or just to review and discuss as we kind of move through this process. That fifth option is in the ballpark of about 6.8 million, but it does address some things for both sides of our facility here. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Paige and John here to come up and kind of run you through maybe where we've been, where we're headed with our facility needs study. You're welcome.
Great. Evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to be here in person talking about the study. It has been a really great collaboration with all the departments, and as you can see from our presentation, we have lots of things that we've kind of explored with the group. And so Paige and I are going to kind of tag team a little bit on various parts of it, but what we would like to cover tonight a little bit is, obviously the chief kind of introduced our process a little bit, so we'll dig a little bit further into that. We did look at space needs not only for kind of a midterm, which you'll see in our recommended solution tonight, but also looked at potentially long-term ideas for the city as well, which is where you get that, you know, kind of larger range of cost. And so as we look at some of the options tonight, you'll see where we have some ideas around how we can build off of some of the solutions that we're going to talk about tonight. We'll talk a little bit about cost and how we arrived at the numbers, and then look for some feedback, because we're at a really good spot with the project right now. We've kind of gone through many of these tasks already. We're actually down at task number 6 right now. We think that this is always a good opportunity to bring it back to city leadership and kind of talk through what your thoughts are on this. Certainly we've gotten a lot of great feedback along the way. And our process really is one that really engages with not only the facility committee, but also with staff and departments. And so we've had multiple meetings to kind of talk through operational changes that you may have some questions on, but we're trying to think out long term as to what some of the things that you might be bringing on as a city in the future. Not to say that those are the ultimate thing, but really kind of looking at where you might grow in the future. And so a lot of the discussion was really related to let's kind of think about what our space usage is today. Where are we really tight on space? What are some of the things that are going on in the kind of best practices right now? And a lot of those best practices really related to police. You'll hear us talk about that today. But there's also some best practices on city operations related to service counters, flexible workspaces, and some of those types of things that we really spent some time talking about those as we develop that long-term solution. The overall goals for the project was really to take a look at the facilities. So we do have a facility component to this that we're finishing up as related to just some basic reinvestment in facilities, whether it's windows, exterior work, sidewalks, those types of things. So we'll have a full report on that. But we did talk a little bit about growth related to population, which really kind of then led into the conversations related to kind of future facility needs. And so really that gets down to kind of a value conversation as far as how far out do we want to be looking. 20 years is usually a time horizon that we can get some consensus around, but it's really kind of hard to think much beyond that 20-year horizon. So we tried to break it down into that 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year thoughts related to growth. And then the last thing that we really spend a lot of time on is to talk about budgets, so that whatever the outcome of the conversations today and the report, you guys have a roadmap for how you might need to be thinking about reinvestment in these facilities. So how did we go about determining space? Well, we really sat down and said, okay, how much square footage do people need in order to perform the jobs that they do, whether it's the administration, whether it's records, whether that's patrol, any of those departments. We really kind of sat down and talked through what are the types of spaces that we're looking at, and let's create a standard around those, because what that does is that'll feed into the numerical part of the program, which I'm going to have Paige kind of walk you through as we kind of develop that overall square footage. We talked a little bit about space utilization, as far as, you've used just about every space in this building, and so your overall utilization is quite high right now. And so in order to give a little bit of elbow room in there, we use kind of certain multipliers in the program, which we call like net to gross numbers, which gives you circulation and kind of that extra space that you need in order to properly function within office spaces. And so you'll see some of those numbers as we kind of look through the program. And so so the team did get together with all the departments. This is a lot of detail in here. Certainly we would love to answer any questions that you might have on these things, but our intent would be obviously to come back or answer questions tonight if there are some things that you want some specific feedback on.
All right, so looking at the space program, the first area we kind of divided the program up into how the facility is currently divided up. So we've got City Hall on one side, police on the other side. This first section we're going to look at is the City Hall shared spaces. So kind of the building with City Hall, and then this center area here. So not a whole lot of change that we identified in this first area. Really just, some right sizing of spaces, possible increase in council chambers, and then really just some right sizing throughout. Otherwise, things stay pretty much the same. Food shelf stays pretty much the same. Then looking over at City Hall operations, here's where we see some of our big increases or larger increases. So if you look down the line, we really just right-sized some offices. So as John mentioned, there's, certain space standards that go along with office space sizes and meeting room sizes. So we applied those space standards here. So there were some increases in office sizes, some decreases in office sizes. We've got a few new employees, staff identified here as well. We go from 12 staff currently between administration, finance, community development, and looking to the future in that 20-year plan, we're looking at to increase to about 21 staff members. The majority of these staff are in the community development department, and so that would be bringing the building official and building planning and zoning into in-house as full-time staff. We also identified a need for some service center or service counter conference rooms. So at that service counter for community development, there would be a space for people to meet in kind of a intermediate zone. So you don't have to have the public conversations right out in the lobby. You can bring somebody into a room just off the lobby, still secure from the staff side, but have a space to just kind of bring them to and discuss whatever needs to be discussed. So we identified some of those spaces. If you'll notice, the square footage about doubled for this operations area. And as I mentioned, most of that is in the community development area. Then looking at the support space for City Hall, really here, major increases in storage space and meeting room space, and then overall just kind of work areas. So we heard a lot from staff members using the space that, things are pretty tight. We've got people working in rooms that are not supposed to be offices, as you all know. So, although the break room is sized correctly right now, having somebody officed out of there really doesn't, promote the best space for a break room. So no increase in size there, but just, making sure that it's not also an office space. So there was some pretty significant increases here, looking at just under 2,000 square feet of increase on the support space side. And then we just highlighted the downstairs basement shared spaces. So really no change needed. I mean, there's some storage space in there. That's some great storage space. Ideally, that would be on the upper level, but we just kept that same storage space and looked out 20 years and kept that there. And then there's just some unused rooms down there that we kind of omitted. So no major change in that area. And then looking over at the police side, again, the police lobby and support spaces, not a huge amount of change here. One thing that the department would like is a soft interview room or safe room. So it's something that we're seeing more and more in police stations, and it's a space to talk with people coming in right off the lobby. So there's no need to bring people, all the way back to the secure space. They can just do those initial meetings right there off of the lobby. The space also doubles as a safe room, and that's a space where if there is, after hours, the building's locked down, this room would still be open. And if somebody, a community member, felt the need, if they were in distress, they can come into this space, close the door, and then it contacts dispatch or the police department, and then they can get the help that they need. So that's a space that we identified that would be beneficial to the community. Looking at the administration side, if you'll notice, the 20-year plan does call for one additional support specialist. That was really the only additional admin staff that we identified. And then it was just, a real central mail workroom, which is not really in existence at the police department right now. It's all kind of just all in one patrol area, workroom, everything's just all in one. And then some additional lobby conference room as well. Looking at the patrol side, we are looking at, or we did identify 7 additional patrol staff. So that would be 5 additional patrol workstation areas, and then the addition of a sergeant and an SRO or JO. We also did identify a desire for a defensive tactics or fitness space. There's a desire for a mudroom space, place to hold all of the equipment that the officers use on a daily basis. And then just some other general support spaces for the patrol area. So this space did grow quite a bit from about 725 currently square feet to about 5,000 square feet would be the need for 20 years. And then looking at the police and city hall garage space. Oh, sorry, I did want to just bring up too, the chief brought it up, but in the police patrol area, this is also where we are looking at the evidence processing, intake and storage. So currently it's a very small space for evidence storage, about 55 square feet, and there is no real processing room. It's all done just in the open patrol area. So we do look at adding a full real processing room, intake room, so that process can be kind of more by the book, how it's done in most facilities today. And then going back to the city hall garage space and police garage space, patrol would like to have 8 vehicles parked inside. And then city hall garage really stays the same, but we just kind of grouped that together with the police garage. There is a desire for a vehicle evidence processing space as well, and then just some additional support areas. Currently, there is about 1,600 square feet of garage space for police and city hall combined, and in the future it would look to be more like 5,500. So looking at facility totals, currently the city hall has 12 full-time staff and the square footage of about 10,000 square feet. The proposed utilization for 2040 puts it up to 21 staff members at just about 13.6 thousand square feet.
Police currently has 14 full-time employees and about 4,000 square feet of space. And then the 2040 utilization would be 22 full-time employees and about 14,000 square feet of space. So if you'll notice, the building area more than doubles in that 20-year plan. You want to talk cost, John?
So it's probably no surprise to many on the council that there's been quite a bit of construction inflation generally over the last couple of years since we've come out of the pandemic. As a firm, we track lots and lots of projects just so that we can kind of keep an eye on what's happening in the market. There's lots of resources out there, various construction groups, even the state of Minnesota publish, inflationary data and stuff like that. But to me, it's always important to kind of look at similar facilities. And so the exercise that we did here was to kind of look back at similar types of facilities, whether it be new construction or renovation that were either office or public safety related. And then we put some inflationary factors to those numbers based on what past history was, just to see what those numbers would be today. And they range anywhere from $400 to $425 a square foot for new construction, and anywhere from $235 to $300+ a square foot for renovation, depending upon the level of renovation. Where things get expensive is if you're doing like a full gut job renovation, maybe you're replacing all the mechanical systems, those types of things have a higher price point than, say, if you had done a modernization project that maybe replaced all your mechanical systems, you may not have as much of that. So that's probably why there's a bit more range on some of those things. Anecdotally, what we have been suggesting for budgets for these type of facilities going into 23 is in and around that $400 a square foot for new construction, in the higher 200s, like around 275 or so for major renovation projects. And so as we were kind of talking about this project and where to advise the city to start looking at numbers, is we decided to take kind of a conservative midpoint approach, assuming that we're not building next year. We do have to take into consideration some additional escalation going into, say, 2024. So say there was consensus on what it was that we were going to do, and you started a design process, you still wouldn't be into construction until sometime next year. And so there would need to be some thought related to what that budget might look like. And so right now we're suggesting, for like if we're going to do renovations of City Hall, that we start out at about $250 a square foot, which would give you a good place to start with some renovation work, and then using about $425 a square foot for City Hall new construction or police new construction. So fairly robust numbers, which is why as we started to look at some of the options, it was clear that some of those we needed to think about ways that we could phase that. And so the team kind of came up with the 4 options that the group talked about, and then we'll kind of review this real quick, and then we'll talk through what the kind of midterm recommendations are.
So as the chief kind of introed, and I think it's in your packet, there was 4 initial options that we worked with the group to develop. 3 of those options were all renovations and additions to the existing facility, and then option 3 was a new construction option. So option number 1 was a demo and addition and renovation. So it looked at renovating the existing City Hall and police, demolishing that existing police garage, and then additions to City Hall and police. The project cost for this one was about $14.25 million. Option 2 looked at additions and renovations. So renovations would be done to the existing City Hall and police station. And then there would be additions to the City Hall and police station as well. Everyone would stay where they are currently. And there would just be those, minor additions going on. That project cost looked to be about $14.8 million. Option 3, as I mentioned, was the only option that we looked at. That would be new construction. So that would look at demoing the existing city hall and police facility, and then building a brand new city hall and police station. Kept all circulation on the site pretty much the same, but this one did put us up at 19 million. And then option 4 was a phased new and renovation. So what we looked at doing in order to manage costs as efficiently as we could, we looked at the possibility of phasing. So it would be a new police station would be added on to the existing facility. You demo the existing police garage for that. And then once the new police station was built, police would then move into the new facility. Community development would then move over to where police is currently. So then City Hall would take up this entire footprint, and then the new would just be police. So the cost for that one was a little bit tighter than the other 3 options, but it was still up at that $14 million mark. As John mentioned, these are all 2024 construction dollars, and would need to be inflated. And then these costs don't include any temporary housing. We tried to phase options 3 and 4 as best we could, so there wouldn't have to be any temporary housing of departments during construction. But depending on how much everybody likes to listen to construction activities going on, it might be necessary. So then, as we discussed, the group really wanted to look at something that would be, a little bit less of an impact cost-wise. So we looked at maybe looking at a 10-year plan instead of the 20-year plan, so looking at a midterm solution. So we went back through and reviewed the surveys that we went through with staff, and looked at the growth over the next 10 years in lieu of 20 years. And we were able to scale things back slightly. So if you'll notice, the midterm need for City Hall takes us from existing staff of 12 to 16 staff members. And then the full 20-year plan would be 21 staff members. So it's a pretty nice midpoint there. And it really, we identified that it could be in the footprint that you currently have here. So there would be no need for increase in footprint. On the police side, it is a little bit more aggressive, just because the need for program square footage over there is higher. So currently, as I mentioned previously, there's about 4,000 square feet and 14 full-time employees. Looking at that midterm, we're looking at 22 full-time employees and 12,000 square feet. So that gives us kind of a midpoint square foot of 26,000 for the facility for both police and City Hall. And so the solution that we came up with was looking at taking the police and doing an addition for patrol spaces and garage space, and then keeping the police administration where they currently are, but doing some minor renovation in that area. And then it also looked at renovating the old council chambers, so the current meeting room, to be some new City Hall offices, and then just some minor renovation to the City Hall side, just some support space. This does allow us to keep circulation really the same as it is on site currently, and this does set us up for future expansions of the police facility to get to that 2040 need. So this is just a floor plan kind of identifying the spaces that would need renovation. So there's just some ADA toilet facilities that would need to be done on the City Hall side, and then really it's taking that existing training space. We would be able to put 4 offices in there, a quiet room, a conference room, and some central storage, which are all the big need spaces that City Hall identified for the next 10 years. And then looking at the police side, it's really just renovating the current patrol area and making that into an office, a server room, and a workroom. Then we took the existing City Hall garage and storage space just off the public lobby, and we're able to recreate that space to be that soft interview room, safe room that we discussed earlier, and then a lobby conference room and some storage. There is the option to remove the existing police garage, not necessary, but we did put that on here just in case that would be something that the group would be interested in. And then it does show just to the kind of plan south here that police patrol squad garage addition would be just to the south. So looking at the cost for option 5 here, this would be a new police addition for patrol and garage space. That's just about 10,700 square feet. We're using that $425 a square foot number that John mentioned earlier, so it gets us about $4.5 million construction cost, and then very minor existing police and city hall renovations, only about 2,000 square feet at that $250 square foot number. So just about 500,000 for renovations. Gets us really $6.5 million for project cost for this solution. Again, this is the 2024 construction dollar amount, and this also, one thing that's not identified here is the deferred maintenance piece of it that John was alluding to previously. So we do have a report of deferred maintenance that would need to be reviewed, and some of the existing renovation costs would address that, but since we're looking at very minor renovations here, there would be some costs to like the exterior envelope that would need to be addressed in addition to this. Then looking at the schedule, so we are currently in that council feedback phase here in February. We're looking to take the information that we get here tonight and discuss further with the group, and we could propose looking at revising and updating concepts later in February here, early March, and then hopefully council approval of next steps here, March 2023. Any questions, or would you like me to go back to any slides? I know we went through it kind of quick. There's a lot of information.
And I was going through it myself while you
Yeah.
were talking, so it's a lot of money.
So Paige, the group,
We're
this,
all the way, we're
this
all the way
group
here.
has reviewed and they're recommending, oh, I see, committee recommendations. Okay, got it.
That one, yeah. That's the 6 point.
Yes, they're recommending option 5.
And that addresses a lot of the PD area versus our staff on City Hall side, correct?
Well, it also does the city hall staff, so could you put up the diagram for that one?
Yes, this one.
So in this model here, basically community development or 4 offices would be created in the old council chambers, so there would be some staff space available there, new staff. And as you know, we have 3 people who are currently working in less than ideal spots, plus we're talking about bringing a building official on. So we're not talking about future needs relative to the city hall side. And I doubt once the space is created for them, I don't think there's very much future need that would be needed after that.
Okay.
How big would those offices and the quiet and conference room be over there?
We did apply the space standards, so it depends on what type of office is going there, but they range from 120 square feet to 150 square feet. So they would be the appropriate size in that range for the position that's going there.
Okay.
So what is the next step, Mr. LaRude, for this?
Well, Mark and Lori had also prepared some cost information, because it is gonna obviously be impacted
Yeah.
by that. So, and there was some included in your packet. I don't know, Mark, if you want to say a couple of words about it.
I think it was, here, I'll just go to, mine didn't make it into here, but I'll just speak to it. It was included in the packet. We had Northland Securities ran some projections for bonds. I think initially when we met a few weeks back, we had looked at like 6.825 million. So I had based our calculations off of that. So we ran a 12-year, a 15-year, and a 20-year. So to get that construction deposit, the bond size would range in like right around like a 7.2 million. Little bit of fluctuation depending on when we issue the bonds. There's some capitalized interest that's in there. They calculated that they used a rate of anywhere from 3.56% to 4.13. So they took the market rate and added some cushion, much like prior bond issuance. You know, we can't really tell where interest rates will be at. So they added 75 basis points to give you more of a conservative estimate. But we would be looking at anywhere from a $570,000 levy, annual levy at a 20-year to a 12-year is around $785,000. So really, you know, as we got, you know, approval from council and moving forward, we would look at the structure of that bond, where it fits in with our current debt levies that we have in place, and then how it fits in over our future years with, you know, as our tax capacity is transitioning, we would look to model that debt to fit well within there. So hope that gives kind of a snapshot of where we're at. So the numbers included here, we'll go on slightly with that bond. You know, I think we had discussed 6.5 million. So depending on where we landed on that final amount, but there's somewhat of a range within there for annual levies.
Does this require a referendum?
No.
And you've ran these with our projected like 5 to 7 year, like what will happen with our bond and when the decommissioning happens, like you've
We
done
haven't fully
modeling?
vetted yet. I mean, I've ran it through some of our long-term plans, but as we get more direction from council, then that'll get more mature and we'll see how it fits in, work with Northland on how we could structure those bonds to fit within some of these future years and some of the expectations moving forward.
I think that's my concern, just this evening right away, was how long-term this will work with how our city will be changing.
Yeah, I like the idea of a new police department rather than new city hall. We'll get chastised for building a new city hall council chambers. They won't complain if we build a new police department though.
Well, there's just space here. I mean, to be ADA compliance, we have like no meeting sites. I don't know if you've meet with citizens, you kind of have to pick like an outside source. Like we really have no identified space in order to meet with outside.
No, I agree. I'm not have a problem with it.
Yeah.
You know, some remodeling in here and a new police station would be just fine for me.
So I like the recommendation that the committee has made. I do. I think it solves our immediate
Issues.
needs and issues. I just now need to understand how that puts our city going forward with taking that on. So that's where I am. That's my thought process as of right now. And maybe that's where you want us to be. Is that, you know, like,
Well, when the council commissioned Wool to do this facilities needs evaluation, this is where the ending point was to that study. And so they have done that, and now it is back to the council, say, are we on the right path? Is this group on the right path? And if they are, then I think it's engaging Wold in the next step of what that looks like. They would prepare a proposal and detail what would be in the next step. We would refine the dollar amounts and what it looks like in terms of impact, and we can continue down that road. That's what I think the group is, or if we're on the wrong path, we want to know that as well.
Well, no, what they're proposing, I think is the best way to go.
Right.
Right path.
Yeah, I think that my thought process is exactly where you guys are. Like, you need kind of like that okay to move
To the next step.
to the next step, and I'm right there to see what the next step
So is,
tells us. As long as everybody else, I don't,
No,
Yes.
I'm-
okay, we're
I'm-
all, okay, good.
I'm on
Wanted
the
to make
same
sure we had
track.
consensus.
I'm on the committee, so I already approved this. I don't, Rick's already approved it, he's on the committee,
Well, if Rick has already
You can't
approved
speak
it.
for him.
right?
We almost wanted to reschedule it so he could be here too, but we felt we wanted to get in front of you guys. So yes, we're not expecting a final decision on any of this tonight. Certainly, there's a lot of work to be done to refine kind of this blocking concept that we've put together, which is what the administrator is kind of talking about. Certainly, understand from a financial side of things, there's some questions to be answered related to that. So our schedule is still fairly good right now. Certainly, a design process is going to take a while. We're at that point with the season, it's going to be next year construction, just from the standpoint of design, bidding, and all of that kind of stuff. So if there is some generalized consensus that we're heading in the right direction, we'll continue to work with the chief and administration to kind of refine that schedule, and then probably come back in March with kind of those next steps as far as what a design process might look like and an overall schedule. So you can, and that'll also help on the finance side as well, because one of the first phases of the work is to refine those design solutions, maybe have some further conversations about maybe some of these deferred maintenance things that we might want to tackle with this where it makes sense, and then that would give the finance director some actual numbers, because we'll put together an estimate based on the final solution. So there's a whole lot of steps to come that'll help with some of those final numbers as you move forward as well.
Okay. So
Does that
just as a summary to like recap, because
Yeah.
there's an audience out here, this is not a for sure, this is what we are doing. This is we are taking the next step to investigate how it will affect the city.
Yeah.
So, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're not breaking ground.
Yes, thank you.
We got lots of work to do before we get there. So that's all we have for council tonight, so we appreciate your time and your feedback, and I'm sure we will be in front of you again with kind of the next steps.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
All right, thanks
Thank
for
you
your time.
both.
Works.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Consent agenda, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, the consent agenda items tonight include the hiring and termination reports for the Becker Community Center, Pebble Creek Golf Club, and Public Works, water, wastewater. Number 2, approve partial pay app number 3 to Dunick Incorporated in the amount of $491,368.87 for 2021 street improvements. And I will stand for any questions.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda?
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor may state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Payment of the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Anniversary announcements for the month of February. Several. Let's see, we'll start out with Tony Nerdang, and he is our administrative assistant that sits at the front desk, and he's celebrating 4 years with us.
Already?
I know, right? 4 years. Yes, and then we have Christine Olin. She's our accounting technician. She's celebrating 6 years with us. David Ryberg, police officer, is celebrating 6 years. Michael Beringer down at the wastewater, he's an operator down there. It's 23rd year, 23. Wow. Christopher Kroll, one of his coworkers at the wastewater treatment facility, is celebrating 5 years. And then Robert Rearson is a wastewater treatment facility operator. They all work down in the sewer area, which is the most important piece of the city. He is celebrating 18 years, so all wonderful. Wow. So congratulations to those those folks. Some of those have gone by really fast. I remember when we interviewed Christine, so either,
February is a big month of hires, apparently.
yeah, wow. So, does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? I will ask for a motion to adjourn then.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Those in favor can state aye.
Bye.
We are adjourned at